Hello everyone, welcome back to my cozy corner of conscious consumerism. This is week 27 of my Know by Year. Last week was a big week. We had the 4th of July. We had a big week on the channel with a video every day. I will not be keeping that up, but there will be at least 3 videos each week over summer, so hopefully that's good news. Today, let's catch up a little bit first. I hope your 4th of July holiday was good. I actually surprisingly enjoyed seeing the fireworks this year, and I guess fireworks are one of those things that make me feel like life is in fact worth living. It gets me a little reflective and feeling a little bit of the magic of the spectacle. It might be a corporate, cash grab in many ways, or problematic for the environment in many other ways, but the holiday does kind of get me a little bit. We also recently went bowling, and that kind of segues into my topic of the day, which is consumerism and kids. And this is not going to be a comprehensive review or even it's not going to cover specific situations either, but I saw one of my favorite creators, Shawna, kind of talking about this and how she's not a parent and therefore doesn't feel totally qualified to talk about it. So I thought I would step in and give my 2 cents as somebody who is a mom. And when we went bowling, it struck me how a lot of our kid-centric environments or environments geared towards kid activities are very overstimulating. And there's a lot of colors and sounds and, so many screens in the bowling alley. There was like 6 different videos playing on the area, where you roll your ball to the pins. It was the back screen. So many videos and multiple audios playing. I got to watch a few music videos, which was kind of nostalgic, and it also made me think about products being featured for the sake of not buying, for the sake of the vibe, the song. And I might talk about that in another video later. But anyway, back to the matter at hand, consumerism and kids. I guess I'm going to start with my relationship to technology and kind of the age I grew up. So as a millennial, I did not have a cell phone until high school. And actually for a while, I gave that up when we moved to New Zealand, and I didn't have a cell phone for the first year of college. And then I finally had to give in to communicate with my classmates and, sometimes teachers. I had to get a cell phone back in my life in the 2nd year of college. But these days, you see kids, toddlers, having iPads as forms of entertainment. Maybe they're not connected to people via phones, but they are connected to the internet in some way, shape, or form. And regardless, again, if their iPads are not connected to the internet, they're still connected to visuals on a screen. So even at the most basic level, the fact that toddlers are exposed to the touchscreen mediums at that young age is a huge change from the way that I and probably people of parental age, many people who are at the age to be parents these days, grew up. And so I think it goes to follow that you can expect kids to be on all of the online resources, including social media, from a much earlier age than their parents were. So I kind of have evidence for this based on something I've posted on my music channel. And I'll give you a brief story time, I guess, to kind of illustrate why I suspect that minors are indeed very, very present on social medias, provide the evidence that they're there and they're watching. So on my music channel, I post practice videos, pop covers, and then the occasional memes. And there was this one hamster meme, right? It was a sad hamster. There was a song, and I covered it on my viola. And then people were commenting for the sheet music, and I provided a sheet music version of it for violin and viola. And unbeknownst to me, I did not expect this to go viral, at least for my standards, but both of those videos on my TikTok and Instagram have hundreds of thousands of views. And this suggests to me that I managed to tap into the middle school, high school orchestra crowd. And in fact, I was tagged in a few videos where very obviously minors, high school, middle school students were playing the piece based on the sheet music that I provided. So that's kind of cool in a way that I was able to reach them and connect through music, which is my true passion. But it's also kind of alarming to know that so many people, the hundreds of thousands of views, were probably mostly minors, mostly non-adults, mostly kind of vulnerable members of our population, mostly the future of our population. And then when you apply this to the consumer-focused content, right, I do suspect and kind of hope that a lot of the comments we see on there are left by minors too. The videos of restocks and blatantly over-consumerist hauls and other kinds of media of that nature. A lot of times you'll see comments that are like, "Oh, this is goals. Oh, when I have money, this is what I'm going to do," or otherwise kind of saying how aspirational it is. I sincerely hope that fellow adults are not the ones leaving these comments or feeling that way. No judgment if they are, but I really do hope that, well, I hope and I don't hope, because I don't want minors to be seeing that and being influenced to think that that's the way to live. But I also hope adults aren't commenting things like that. I don't know. It's getting a little bit hairy. I think I better move on. So anyway, that's my evidence for the large presence of minors on social media in my firsthand experience of using social media. I'm sure there are statistics about how many people on social media are under the age of 18, but you know, statistics and research isn't as fun as my own personal experience, right? Anybody can Google that. So there are minors there, and influencers are doing a lot of sponsored content, receiving PR, and pitching products essentially to their audiences, presumably adults who have money and have the ability to decide whether they want to buy something and make that decision wisely. However, the presence of minors on these medias means that inevitably they'll be caught in the crossfire of these influencers pitching products to everybody. They don't know who they're talking to, and they don't have the full development of their brains. And not only do they possibly want the products that are being pitched, and I think, again, the Sephora kids is evidence of this, the phenomenon where younger and younger girls were going into Sephora, buying the drunk elephant skincare that they really don't need because a lot of it's anti-aging and they're not even adults yet. So they are being pitched the products and wanting the products, but also they start to see this behavior as glorified, as aspirational, as something viable to do for a career. And I would argue that this kind of makes the appeal of other careers fall by the wayside, at least a little bit. And again, brands make it really attractive. They send girls on brand trips. They give them a lot of free PR. A lot of the most popular viral videos are people opening, a week's worth of PR, and they've got packages stacked to the ceiling. So it's hard for especially impressionable minds to watch this and not at least want a little piece of that. And especially at that age, middle school, high school ages, I think that is the prime time that people in general feel the FOMO. They want to fit in. They don't want to be left out. They want to know that they're going to be accepted as who they are. They're still trying to figure out their identity. And this is, I would think, the worst time to be exposed to everything that we see online regarding consumer culture and how people should be buying stuff. If you watch kids, and I have young kids right now, so this is drawing on my own experience. If you watch them when they have the hardest times in their lives, like when they react the most poorly, is what I'm trying to say. Usually it's in relation to some kind of high dopamine behavior, right? When you give them screen time and then take away the screen, they might blow up at you. When you give them sugar or when they don't get sugar, they might blow up at you. If you have any fruit juice in the house, they're going to be asking for it until it's all gone because they just can't get enough of that. If they're in a store sometimes and they see all the colors and the things that are available for them to possibly take home, they might be overstimulated and overwhelmed and have a tantrum there too. So all of these situations, these high dopamine kind of scenarios, I think we can look to the children here and, we can empathize, right? Because even as adults, we feel some of these things. We want the sugar, we want the screen time, we want the stuff we can buy in the stores. But they, in their less developed states, express this in a way that's so much more clear. And I think should alert us to the dangers of exposing them to this kind of behavior and condoning it and glorifying it and making it something to aspire to is so dangerous. And another thing that really kind of sets your kids off is not getting enough sleep. Really it's all these things that are good for adults too, but they'll just show you when things have gone wrong in their systems a lot more clearly. So anyway, I guess the online consumer culture kind of interacts really deeply with two of these triggers, and that's the screen time and the shopping. Right? The presentation of stuff that you can buy and take home and acquire for yourself. And adults have some ability to limit screen time and to enforce their values and to uphold responsible practices regarding being on social media. And of course they should. But we know, this is not always possible and it's not always happening. Basically, anytime a kid has access to a screen, even if it's not their own screen, they might be able to see some of this kind of psychologically damaging behavior. You can't prevent kids from absorbing the fabric of society that's all around them, even if you try your hardest as a parent to model appropriate behavior. And I know not all parents are even able to model the appropriate behavior because a lot of us have fallen into the traps ourselves, myself included. And that actually is one of the biggest motivators for me to get my act together and change my own habits regarding consumerism, both of stuff and of screens. And my ultimate goal is to have all of my stuff under control so that I can kind of have for example, a wardrobe formula where I can then pass that down to my kids. And when they're asking for, another shopping trip or to go buy some more clothes, I can say, okay, but this is our wardrobe formula. This is how much is reasonable to keep. And this is the values we should uphold in the clothing we buy, whether it's shopping secondhand, not buying more than we need, really evaluating new styles that we add, and not falling into the trap of following trends all the time, kind of developing our own style identity in a stronger way based on things we actually value so that we're not relying on new trends coming in and out. And I mean, I guess as a side note, they don't even have to be on social media to be exposed to advertising. So it kind of applies whether or not you have a full ban on screens in your house. And I guess finally, even if you're not on a screen or on media, the phenomenon of rich kids or the cool kids or the popular group will always be there. As long as you go outside of your house or interact with the community at all, there's always going to be somebody in the rich crowd or the cool crowd or the better than you in some way crowd. And kids, again, are prone to feeling the FOMO in these situations and looking for ways to break into that crowd or ensure that they're accepted, at least by some of their peers. All right, editing Alexa hopping in for one more layer of nuance here regarding consumerism and kids and trends and interacting with peers and deciding what's worth maybe indulging in and what's not. I totally feel the conundrum of wanting to provide for your kids a better childhood than you had, and or wanting to make sure that they have, the right stuff that you didn't get, because I felt that really hard as a kid. And I think I even shared that in my kind of life story, why I think I have a shopping problem as an adult. There was a very visceral experience at a soccer practice where I was the only kid that didn't have the Under Armour cold gear, and I had to wear my fleece jacket underneath a t-shirt, and it was really bulky, and I felt like a total outcast. So I don't want any of my kids to feel that way, like their parents don't know the customs of the country and therefore kind of don't know how to make sure that they're prepared for their activities to a reasonable level. Obviously, I'm not talking about decking them out and designer brand name equipment for things, but I do think also, in addition to making sure that they have, the basics of what's appropriate for the activities, I do think it's okay to kind of indulge them in the areas where they care the most. So if your kid's really into clothes, for example, I have one who is. For their birthday, I did make a point to go kind of shopping at a brand that was a little bit cuter than shopping secondhand or going to Target or Walmart. And for this kid, it has a lot of impact because that's what they care about a lot. And if they don't care, obviously, you don't have to do that. But in these areas where you might be okay indulging, if they're into crafts, into sports, into whatever hobbies, it's important as well to just model reasonable behavior and communicate with them, talk to them about, hey, you care about this, so therefore we're okay with investing a little bit more, of our resources, of our money and time into this area. So because you care about this, we're not going to do it in these other areas where you don't care so much. So if you like to have nice clothes, maybe we go a little more budget on the school supplies or whatever that you don't really mind having the less than premium versions. I'm not totally against buying stuff for your kids or even to some degree participating in trends with your kids if it's something that seems simple and reasonable. And that'll be different for every person in every family. And of course, alongside all the discussion of spending on stuff comes the value of saving and being smart with your money and resources and preparing for the future. And I think the final piece that's super important is that you as a parent do not push them to think that clothes are important or that sports are important or that whatever school supplies, stationery are important. If their own interests tell you, if they lead you, they think these things are important to them, that's when you go ahead and have those conversations about, hey, if this is really valuable to you, we can go ahead and get you the version that you really want. There might be some work involved too. You might encourage your kids to do something in return for that kind of special treatment in that area of the stuff that they care about. So I wasn't necessarily planning on addressing those specifics in this video, but there we go. Hopefully all of that makes sense. And now back to the video. Public displays of consumerism, or PDCs maybe, have always been a thing, and they're always going to be a thing, both in real life and now rampantly on social media. But I would say that now, because of the social medias, it is amplified, glorified, made into an aspirational behavior and career to an unprecedented degree. And so I think those of us on the other side must fight harder for reason, for normalcy, for anti-normalization of the trends of acquiring more and more and more and more, and therefore enabling consumers to justify 10 of an item instead of 2 of an item, or even 1, or 50 of an item instead of 20. I've gone through these before, especially in the videos last week, of how even if it's not as extreme as the influencers, a little bit of excess is still excess. And applied to a whole population, it can really have exponential effects. So what can parents do? Like I've kind of alluded to throughout this little chat. First of all, we can try to monitor their content, and I don't want to say restrict, but encourage responsible usage of especially things like social media. So making sure that they're not on there before they're age developmentally ready, which is that going to be ever? But, making sure they're not on there as a toddler, elementary student, middle school even, making sure that they have some tools to deal with what they're going to see, and reiterate, model, and elevate in your house the practices that are normal and reasonable and environmentally responsible, all of those things. And then finally, to provide other options for fulfillment in life. So this might be goals or aspirations or ambitions or projects or hobbies, or even just quality time with your kids. No screens. And a lot of those things actually you could do together. So if it's a hobby, paper crafting or other crafting, you could do that with them. I like to do scrapbooking and making cards by hand, and my kids enjoy doing that with me. It could be learning an instrument, doing a sport, moving your body outside is great. Being outdoors in general is great. All these things are focuses that are not shopping or being on social media. And I think if we cultivate those together with our kids, that could be a powerful tool in combating the consumerism culture that is taking over, especially the online scene. And as we all know, the kids are the future. So they have a big power to reshape how the next steps of consumer culture unfold, and how companies are able to produce and market, and whether influencers are still a thing, and all of that. It kind of depends on the generations to come. So if at the very least we can make sure that they're prepared before they even encounter these things, model the healthy behaviors, and then provide them with support, resources, quality time, I think that's really the best we can do. And no amount of stuff that they can buy or we can buy them would replace any of that in the long run. All right, I hope that was food for thought or interesting or helpful to some of you. There is so much more to cover in specifics, but that's not for today. If anybody has anything they would like feedback on specifically, I'm happy to read comments and do what I can. Can't make any promises, but as always, this is just from my personal experience and observations during my no-buy year. Anyway, bye for now, and I will see you in the next one. I think this is a good topic to follow my apicoectomy blog, because I was talking about how I behaved like an adult by not caving into buying an expensive treat for going through a health procedure that is ultimately for my own benefit.